are headed to see New Mutants at Rose Bowl.
Oh, it starts at 8:30?
I don't know.
Oh, well, we are early and now we're chilling out waiting.
Hey guys, and welcome back to our channel. We are CineChix. I'm Jen.
And I'm Christina. And today we're going to be talking about New Mutants, which we had the opportunity to see at the drive-in.
So excited to finally see a movie in a normal setting.
And it was actually my first time at the drive-in because drive-ins are not that popular in New York.
And in Ohio, they are very popular, and I grew up going to them all the time.
So it was really fun, and we hope that the other new movies, like Tenet, that are supposed to come out end up in drive-ins as well, because it was really fun after 6 months to finally get back to seeing a new movie
on a big screen in a semi-normal situation. It was fun.
A group of young mutants is being held for psychiatric monitoring when strange occurrences begin to take place. Both their new mutant abilities and their friendships will be tested as they battle to try and make it out alive.
All right, so let's dive into overall thoughts.
Well, my overall thought was that the movie was enjoyable. I don't feel like I went there and wasted my time, but I feel as though the ending kind of made everything else almost pointless. Of course, there are some things in the middle that were like, okay, but for overall, the movie was good and steadily going up, and then all of a sudden the end comes and it just doesn't, the end didn't feel as strong as the rest of the movie did.
Yeah, I agree. It was definitely one of those movies that I went in with zero expectations because I thought it was going to be trash, and it got like 20% on Rotten Tomatoes, and I think it didn't deserve the 20%. I would give it like a 30 or 40%, but it definitely wasn't the best it could have been. It had a great setup. At the beginning, I was really excited. I was like, okay, I see how you're setting up the characters, you're setting up the relationships. This is gonna be great. And then it just stayed there, and then it crashed down. I think that it had a lot of potential, and then they just weren't really sure what to do with it. And maybe that is because they were expecting to have a trilogy and they thought that this was just gonna be like
their jumping off point.
But that doesn't excuse having a terrible ending. You still could have like saved that. So yeah, overall I think it wasn't as bad as I was expecting because I already expected it to be trash. And it was directed by Josh Boone, who directed The Fault in Our Stars, and this was the next thing he did. I guess it seems like it's been a really long time, but we all forget that this was actually supposed to come out like 3 years ago.
It wasn't bad enough to be pushed that much.
No, especially, you would think like if a movie gets pushed that much, you would think that they would take the time to make it spectacular. There were things that could have been better, that could have been fixed in post, like CGI issues, or that could have been fixed like storyline issues that could have been reshoots, but they didn't really do either.
Well, part of that was because that I read, I could be wrong, but it was shown to Kevin Feige, and he said they were going to do reshoots. And he said release as is. Like,
well, I think that was after.
That was after the Disney acquisition, but I think it was held off because of the Disney acquisition.
Yeah, but I think that once Disney acquired them, they were like, you know what, because this was supposed to be a trilogy.
Yes, it was supposed to be a trilogy.
And now it's up in the air. We're not sure if it's going to get a trilogy, if it's not.
But they may use those actors, because they're young enough for when they actually do dive into X-Men, they could bring them back up if they want.
But this had a lot of people that were popular 3 years ago. You know, we had Macy from Game of Thrones, which we don't talk about because that show doesn't exist anymore. Not good. Wow. And Charlie Heaton from Stranger Things. Literally all of the characters had accents. And I don't know if they did that on purpose to be like, look, all these people are from all over the world.
Well, actually, Roberto didn't have an accent at all, which I thought was weird if he was from Brazil.
But he didn't have an accent.
Not even a little bit.
Not even a little bit. I wonder if it's just because the actor himself couldn't do the accent strong enough.
Like his. And then Danny didn't have an accent either.
Well, because she was Native American, so
she didn't have an accent, but
she had an accent because she was Native American. But then you have
she didn't have an accent.
Well, you mean she's like American? She had, you know what I mean? Like she.
Oh, like technically that
American,
would be her accent.
Mm-hmm. But like everybody else had one, and maybe the reason she didn't have an accent is she wasn't a strong enough actor to keep an accent. Danger. What did you specifically like about New Mutants?
I liked most of the CGI that was in the movie. I thought that most of it was pretty well done.
But by most means, they had 3 years and didn't perfect it.
Yes. I also liked the fact that the way they explained the characters' powers were more through hallucinations than, someone sitting there and just describing what the power was. You never found out what anyone's power was by someone telling you. They showed it to you through their hallucinations.
Yeah,
you see the trauma that came with their power developing, and which was cool. So it wasn't like this huge informational dump of like, oh, this person has this power and that person has that power.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting because a lot of these movies you'll see, especially because they are in what looks like a rehab facility and they have like that group therapy thing, so you expect that that's where they're gonna be like, hi, my name is this and this is what my power is and blah blah blah, and they didn't do that. So I mean, I was happy for that, but at the same time they would do like the runaround of like, well, what's your power? I'm not gonna tell you, and then we would see it in the hallucinations. So like the part about not telling you, I thought that was kind of like, okay. I liked how they did Macy's character when she turned into the wolf. I didn't like her haircut, but I understand why they did it kind of shaggy because she's like a wolf. Unfortunately, like I liked the beginning, I liked the setup, but there's not much else that I liked about it, so I don't have much else to say about that. Okay, so let's talk about the characters and what we liked and didn't like about each character. I really liked Macy's character. I liked her accent. I think sometimes in movies accents can get annoying, accents can go very wrong, or they could go. Make it hard
for you to understand what the person's saying.
Right, but I think she did a really good job. I feel like for the most part, she stayed pretty consistent throughout the whole movie, whereas some of the other characters, Sam, his character, when you have an accent and you get emotional and you yell or you get sad, it is very hard to keep your accent while yelling or while being emotional, and you could tell he struggled with that.
Yeah, when things got heated and emotional, his accent got weird, and it gave me Jasper and Eclipse vibes. When he started getting like upset, that was a bit inconsistent.
And then Ileana, she had a Russian accent or something.
Yeah.
Which I wasn't sure if I was gonna like it. I didn't hate it. Her character was this movie had like the cliche teen horror characters. You had the bitch, which was Ileana. You had the sweet, shy, nice girl, which was Macy. You had the boy from the country, Sam. You had the jock, Roberto. Then you had the new girl, Danny. And Ileana, like her character, she was a good mean girl, I guess you'd say. I feel like her character actually had like the most depth, and like we learned more about her background and more about her story and like her weird little puppet, and how when she uses her power,
it actually turns into like a legit
like little tiny dragon thing.
Yeah, I feel like her story out of everybody else's seemed the most interesting, like the most traumatic, and you kind of want to know way more about that whole situation. In that regard, I wish that maybe she was like the lead main, and then like you could find more out about that, or even if they gave her her own movie, because I feel like there was so much complexity in her background that I feel like it should have been explored more.
I agree, and I don't think we ever will. I wish that we would see more of her story, but unfortunately after the acquisition from Disney, I'm not sure if we're gonna get more of this. As for like the other characters, Roberto, what was up with him always washing dishes?
I don't know. In the movie, he washes dishes, right? And I thought that, okay, well, everybody must have a chore, and we're just seeing him do the chore that he has. No. But no one else is cleaning or doing anything like that. He is always washing dishes, which is odd because his character comes from this rich Brazilian family, and you would think that someone like that who walks around like a frat boy with his collar popped wouldn't be washing dishes, and yet he does, no complaint. He seems to enjoy it.
And I'm
so that was like,
is he just washing dishes, or did he cook for everybody? Like, who cooked? Did anybody cook?
Yeah. No. Yes. Well, obviously someone did.
Somebody cooked, but the only person we see that works there is Dr. Reyes.
But speaking of Dr. Reyes, it's hard to know what her motives are. Like, we know she's a puppet for the Essex Corporation, but it's not clear what her motives in this whole thing are.
No, she seems like actually cares about these characters, but she's like constantly eavesdropping on them, and there's cameras everywhere that show the person's name and the person's like what's going on in their body, which is super weird that like just the camera
Detect
do
all
all
that stuff.
But sure, whatever. And then she just turns from like 1 minute she's like this loving doctor, and then super spoiler, she is told to like kill Danny, and she's like, okay, cool. And then Macy's character like just straight up kills her. Well,
attacks her. Maims her. Doesn't kill her, but maims her enough. Which is also odd because her power is
a barrier.
Yeah, barriers. Maybe the attack was off guard. I don't know. I don't know. That kind of brings us into the things that we did not like about the movie. And one of those things was people's convenient or inconvenient uses of their power.
Yeah.
There is a part where these smiley face creatures are attacking everybody.
Super creepy.
And instead of using their powers, they run and scream. And it was just odd because they have the power to destroy them, but their first instinct was to run and scream and not, like, literally not know what to do. They were literally in distress, didn't know what to do. They were being cornered and still didn't use their powers. The only person who got startled and used their powers was Roberto. He was the only one who immediately used his powers. Everybody else kind of were like,
just like looking.
We don't know, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? And it's like, you have powers.
Which is also like the whole thing about them being in this facility was supposed to be so that they could like learn to control their powers. They even talk about how Dr. Reyes was going to like use them to turn them into assassins. Like, that doesn't make any sense that like they wouldn't like immediately use their powers in a facility that's what they were being trained to do, which we never see them actually being trained. The only person we see being trained was Sam, who trained himself.
Yeah, apparently he was just doing it on his own. Like, no one was forcing him to do it. But it could be because she was just there to see what their powers are, what their level is, and then send them about their way to be like trained to be a certain way. Maybe.
But like,
we
it was
don't
just
know.
it was just one of those things that like leaves you questioning and just doesn't make sense. It wasn't clear. It was dumb.
Also, and we said we liked the CGI, but then also there were parts of it where it seemed like the CGI wasn't quite where it needed to be.
They just gave up.
Yeah, some parts were like really good, and you can really like, you're like, wow, okay, this is like really good CGI. And then other parts were just like,
did you try this day, or like did you like not QC this part? Also, talking about the characters, it seemed like every single character, they all had their own sense of style, but they were all taken to this facility where there's no other employees, nobody else is working. It's just Dr. Reyes, these 5 children, but they all had different styles.
Yeah, pretty much it was like someone went out, bought clothes that the character themselves would wear on a daily basis, which I thought was weird. Like, who was doing that? Why was it that they went that extra mile? Why didn't they just put them in,
it would have made more sense
hospital
if
clothes?
Exactly.
And,
it would have
like,
made way more sense if they were just all in like hospital gowns, and like that's what it would have been like. They're not at the school
for gifted students.
It was just little things like that I'm like, that was dumb.
Like, it'd be different if they like were sent there and they had like a bag or something. But
no,
like,
they were all like ripped away, and like that's even what Dr. Reyes had mentioned before. She's like, if you guys weren't here, then you'd all either be like dead or in prison. Danny came there in her pajamas, but then she had other clothes.
Yeah,
where did they come from?
Went out and bought her some clothes.
Where'd they come from? It was not the best movie. It definitely had its problems. It had its plot holes. It had its CGI problems. It had its script problems. It wasn't the best X-Men movie, but it wasn't the worst.
It's very clear that they wanted to use this movie as a jumping point into the next 2 that the director was planning to do for these movies.
So was New Mutants worth all the hype and the wait of 3 years? Not really.
No, there was not any reason that I can think of why they were holding off releasing, especially since they didn't do the reshoots that they had planned to do, and apparently it was fine to just release. Then why was it pushed and pushed and pushed? And then also, why, instead of releasing it on streaming, did they release it during a pandemic?
Yeah.
Where major states like New York and California, neither one had theaters open. So it was just an odd decision on their part, why they waited so long.
Well, I'll tell you why they released it now during a pandemic in the little theaters that are open is because Disney wants to make that money back, which they're not really gonna do. That's our review of New Mutants. If you've seen it, let us know what you thought. And if you haven't seen it, are you interested in seeing it?
We want to know what you think. Like, comment, and subscribe to our channel so you know every time that we post a new video.
Click that little bell. All right, guys, I hope that you enjoyed our Cinebit on New Mutants. Until next time, bye.